All right, welcome into a special Check the Mic bonus edition. No Steve here. If you know anything about our show, you know we are super keen on international players, rugby players, the IPP, the whole thing. So nobody better to have on to talk to us about all that today than the lead of the IPP, Dominic Fevrier-McPherson. Am I saying your name right? It's a tough one. It's a
Yeah,
lot of syllables in there.
a lot of syllables. You're going to get that difficulty with international names. They're going to be longer. They're going to be different. Man starts off just like that.
So, look, thanks so much for stopping by to talk to us about the IPV. It's been an awesome thing to watch it develop over the last couple of years. I guess let's start with for anyone that doesn't know, tell us what the IPP is, what the purpose is, what its goal is, what we're talking about here.
Okay, so thanks for having me on, first off. But the IPP program is an NFL initiative to have elite athletes access to the NFL. And there's a lot of people outside of the US and Canada that have NFL traits, but it's the access to football. And what the IPP program does is discovers those athletes, test them out, see whether or not they have some of the traits that NFL teams would be interested in, and give the opportunity to learn football and then showcase themselves, whether or not as a free agent or move on to the draft as we do this year.
So, what is there a sort of standard level of knowledge that these guys are starting from? I know last year, Lewis Rees Sammet, the rugby player that people may be familiar with, who's now
Yeah.
signed with the Jags, signed with the Chiefs at the time. Like he made a big deal of, it was a lifelong dream of his. He was a big American football fan. His dad had been into the game. Are most of the guys that are in the IPP, the International Player Pathway program, are they some way, shape, or form football fans? Is there a mix, or are a lot of these guys coming to it from zero level of knowledge at all?
I would say this program, especially this year, we've had a mixed bag. So we'll have guys that have been playing the sport maybe for 7 years in Europe, and then we have guys that are novices that may have just first discovered that they have the traits to be an NFL player for the last couple of months. So you have some guys that have really in-depth knowledge about the sport, and then you have others where this is brand new and they're just trying to work it out. So you mentioned Lewis earlier. We also had Jordan Petaia this year, who's of a similar kind of level of rugby player, and he had great
Right.
knowledge. Just like Lewis, they've been American football fans for a long period of time, so they've built up that type of interest, learned certain moves. So it does help when they're fans of the game. You love the game; it's easier to learn, right? But some players actually do come in with them knowledge, but there's also the guys that they're just picking it up. They may have just finished another career and they're coming into trying to play football, so it's new, but everything works in tandem. Our coaches adjust to who they have in the building.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to touch on Petaia in a little bit because he's been
Yeah,
signed already with the
yeah.
Chargers, and like Lewis Rees It's like an extremely exciting, high level rugby player. So definitely a fun one to talk about. What like what are, do you have a specific type of player or person that you're looking for? What's the kind of recruiting process every year, or is it more of an is it more players seeking you guys out? How much is outreach from the IPP, and how much of it is guys like Petaia or Lewis Rees contacting you and saying, "Hey, I'd like to give this a try."
Yeah, again, it's a mixed bag. We have some players that we approach that we see have the traits, and then there's other players that are fans that want to actually give their try in American football. We can also talk about TJ, the started for the Commanders, the sign for the Commanders from rugby. He was someone that very much has always been an American football fan, but didn't have access to it playing rugby in South Africa. So this is what this program does. It allows guys access to get the opportunity, providing that they're elite athletes and have elite traits.
So how do you identify, guys that you want to kind of approach and see if they want to give this a go? Let's just stick to rugby for a second. I know there's a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
sports that you guys have got in the program, but I would say just as a broad kind of brush stroke, there's a lot of rugby players that have NFL traits. So how would you say, okay, this is a guy we want to have a conversation with, versus any of the other guys that may also fit into the same bucket?
I'll go back to saying that football is a sport that has so many different body types. So a sport like rugby has many different guys that have great size. Like you look at the lock position, for instance, a lot of those guys can actually be tackled, just the size type of leg they have. And then when you look at the wing position and center position, they're more mobile, they're more explosive, they make guys miss. So that's another thing. But I would say it's down to the players themselves, the interest, because obviously they're in contract and we don't approach guys in contract. Or we have had guys that have come out of their contract or when they're in contract breaks, free agents approach us. So we'll look at their traits, physical, whether or not they've got explosive speed, whether or not they show that how quickly they can accelerate, if they've shown power, if they've shown length. It's just all things that are attractive to us and things that we see on Sundays working out really well for NFL players.
There's a few guys this year who've got sort of direct, real, football experience, right? In Europe. What standard now are the European sort of American football leagues at? I mean, I played in the Irish League years ago, and that
Okay. Yeah.
very much not a like not a professional caliber standard league. Like where are we now with kind of European leagues? How relevant is playing experience in those types of leagues?
I would say the players that we've got for the most part from European leagues, we're asking them to play different positions. So while they might have been elite in Europe, when it comes down to the NFL, they're not quite elite at the same standard. So I would say there's still a distance away between the NFL, or not even just the NFL. I would even say the college level and European leagues. It's not on par. I would say there's definitely a lot of development that still needs to go into it, and I believe flag football will probably help those things. But and obviously we've got one player as well, Dante Barnett, who is from the NFL Academy, and who had a bunch of Division One. He had over 20 Division One schools offering him when he went to workout camps, but unfortunately he didn't have the grades at the time. So there is talent there, but sometimes it has to be moved around a bit. So you look at someone like Maceo Beard, who was an elite cover corner in Europe. He's a safety or a big nickel in the NFL. He's not a corner, but he has got the intelligence, the movement skills. He's got a lot of passion for the game. He understands the game inside and out. We play all special teams. Those type of guys. While it's not an outside corner, there's definitely a home for the NFL as a safety and as a big nickel.
How important is that kind of football playing experience versus guys that are, picking it up from fresh in a completely different sport and to even get to the NFL is one thing, but then there's this whole world of like developing playing the game. How important is having some kind of direct experience of playing American football at some level?
I would say every case is different. We have some guys that know the ins and outs. They know, for Dante, for example, he knows he's a free technique. He's not a zero technique. And then we've got Lackey, who's very new to the game as a defense tackle. He's definitely a zero technique. And Lackey not is still learning that, while Dante is very confident in knowing what his strengths are in the game. So it does help. But then you could have the whole Jordan Mailata thing where he came into the game extremely fresh, didn't know it. But I was willing to learn and willing to put in extra effort to learn the game, because it's not just you turn up to the field and you're able to be a great player, or turn up to camp and know what you're doing. This is something where you have to go away, put extra hours in after you're outside of the building, and actually put in the work to become an NFL player. And we're all developmental players. I would say everyone is at least a year and a half, 18 months to 24 months away from being anywhere near productive on the field. We've got to develop our bodies and we've got to develop our understanding of the sport itself. Because it's not just moving to a new sport, we're moving to a new continent.
Yeah, and so that was where I wanted to get to was what is a win for you guys when it comes to these players? I mean, obviously, it's great to have guys like, Louis Rees-Zammit getting signed, but we're a year later, he's on a second team. He's still, is getting them signed a win? I mean, obviously, Jordan Mailata is a win, but right, when you become arguably the best left tackle in the game, that's a win by anybody's standards. But if we assume we're aiming a little bit lower than that as a standard baseline, are you just trying to get guys on rosters? Are you actually sort of, trying to create a more through pathway through, okay, getting signed is great, but that's step, 2 or 3, and we got to get to step 5 or 6 before we're really done with this?
I'll really say playing on Sundays is the aim. I think we've had enough guys on practice squad for a couple of years now. This program's inception was in 2017. So we're going on to year 8, year 9 now. Definitely, we need to be playing on Sundays. Obviously, we've got stories such as Jordan Mailata, F.A. Abada, Jacob Johnson. Those are all guys that have come through this program. They've David Bada as well. The guys that come for this program that played on Sundays. We need more of those guys because there is elite traits around the world in another sports. It's literally just kind of learning the sports, understanding the nuances of it, and not being football players, not just athletes. We can't just be athletes running good 40s, benching as much as we want, doing the explosive drills. We've actually got to do it on Sundays. And that's when the world kind of changes it about the sport when we've got multiple international players playing on Sunday.
So is there anything you've learned from the kind of last, 8 years worth of classes that is sort of changing the types of players you're going after now, or like affecting guiding the way you're recruiting or the kind of guys you're targeting? Has that developed from seeing those last several classes go through?
I would say yes. I would say definitely we learn every year. This being the second year that all 32 teams have an allocation or have an international spot. Previously, it was divisions that were selected. So you might get 8 guys 1 year, 4 guys 1 year. Now it's all 32 teams have the ability to stash an international player and develop them. And then you look at teams such as the Washington Commanders. Last year, they had 3 former IPP players on their practice squad. So they weren't just using them as developmental players, but now they can use them as people they were quite confident to activate on game days. So it kind of shows how far we've come. It's never going to be an immediate thing with anything, but there has been progress and more learning has been instrumental to kind of, I would say, me personally, I'm very much I look into the history of things. So I was part of the original IPP program as a prospect on that back in 2007 or 8. So I look back at the faults there and then kind of added to see what the progress has been since 2017 and kind of used it how I select players this year and who kind of I feel has the best chance to be in an NFL roster. And all 13 of these players, I believe, can do.
And that the fact that all 32 teams now have that spot for an IPP player, that feels like it should be a huge thing for the program, right? Because as I understand it, it's basically like a bonus practice squad spot. Like there's no downside to grabbing an IPP player that you think has potential and using him as part of your practice squad in a way where, previously you at least had to be weighing up, well, this is one of our practice squad spots. Do we want this guy versus, a priority free agent or whatever? Now it's like, it's an extra spot. There's no downside to taking a guy like this.
No, definitely. It's an extra body that if players want to if teams want to use in scout, just using on the scout team. And then if it's elite trait, it's like when you get to the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round of the NFL draft, you're not drafting starters really. You're more drafting players that you can develop. Now, international players are definitely players that could be developed. I would say last year, the Buffalo Bills selected Travis Clayton, someone that's never played football before, similar to Jordan Malata when he came in, literally off his traits. They saw his size, his athleticism, the way he could move, change direction, how explosive he was, and they believe, all right, this can be a left tackle or a right tackle for us in the NFL. We draft him, we develop his body. Us internationals, for the most part, we haven't had college football. So I would generally say guys in college get to about 20 to 40 pounds in college of muscle mass just through growing and lifting and all that stuff. A lot of us guys, especially rugby guys, haven't had that opportunity to grow their bodies. Because rugby, they're running a zillion miles every day. Right. The endurance they have is a lot. So once you stop all that running and start lifting like football points, there's a good chance you can put on an extra 20 to 30 pounds of mass. So if we get a guy that's 6'7", 270 pounds, if you give him 18 months in the NFL building, that could be your 310 pound left tackle or right tackle.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now.
Well, that's a perfect way into circling back around to talking about Jordan Petaia. So he signed with the Chargers. He's listed at 6'3", 225. It was interesting that they said he's a tight end. Obviously, that's wildly undersized for an NFL tight end. What do we think he's going to play at? What's his playing weight going to be in the NFL?
Well, I definitely believe that he's got more mass that he could put on his top half of his body. Just being a rugby player, they usually work on their legs a lot. Rugby is a sport where they're not engaging with their hands. So you're not really seeing that kind of level of work for them. So I think he's probably got another 10 pounds there. So maybe a 235, 240. But he's a H-back, an explosive H-back. He's really explosive, can change direction. And he's someone that's been a football fan for a decent amount of time, where he understands certain things. He's learned things. He's a very studious athlete where he can learn by watching. So he's watched a lot, and just immediately coming in, I saw certain things from him that I believe that he can play on Sunday. Um, he's someone who's very excited to be around. I would say if you think of what Aaron Hernandez was previously for the Patriots, from the H-back position, that's the type of similar.
On the field.
Yeah, of course on the field,
It's
Yeah.
clear there.
Yeah, be very, very, very clear on the field. Great guy. Jordan, he's explosive, catches the ball, knows how to track the ball well. He'll go up and his catch radius is quite decent. He can adjust to the ball in air, knows how to set up defenders through the route progression. So he's someone that's further along than other players that we've had at that position. But I just think that's down to him being such a fan of it. You know, when you love something a lot, you learn, you just pick up a lot of things out there.
So tell us about the rest of this year's group. There's some really interesting names in it. Obviously, Jordan Petaia stood out in terms of a kind of high profile name, but there's some really interesting guys this year.
No, definitely. We've got a lot of size, a lot of speed coming this year. We've got two receivers in Joaquim and Aaron. Those two guys are both 4'4" guys. We believe they're a bit lower, but we just didn't run the times as well as we wanted to. But they're both guys that got over 23 miles per hour. Those are the receivers, kick returners, those type of guys. We have Malipo Manwanza, who is a edge rusher from the UK. He also goes by the name of Maz. He is someone that is extremely explosive. 6'2", 230 pounds, ran a 4.49, 10.5 broad jump, a 38.5-inch vert. Just by the numbers alone, you can kind of see that he's really explosive. In the mold of Nolan Smith Jr. as an edge rusher, similar size, very intelligent, was an economics and finance student. So he picks up things really well. So it's going to be really exciting to see where he goes. He's just turned 21 and he's draft eligible. So it's really exciting to kind of see what happens with him in this draft cycle. After him, we have Gennaro Wakeham. Now, so Gennaro is a huge human being. So big that he makes Jordan Mailata look a bit normal, but not a bit normal. Someone from rugby as well. He's got excellent movement skills. When you watch him running about, you can actually see where he was. You can just see the rugby in him a little bit, but then seeing him on that type of frame is extremely rare in the sport. 6'9", 348 pounds. And just learning how to use his upper body. As I said previously, rugby players they never strike in with their hands. So that's something to come along. He's someone that played rugby in France for 4 years and then played in the UK for the last year from Fiji. So Gennaro Wakeham is someone definitely to have a look out for. If teams, will have a look at him and get that Jordan Mailata feeling, any team that missed out on him the first time round might want to take another bite at the apple. But he's someone that's draft eligible as well, 22 years old. Go ahead.
Yeah, we met him actually down at the Senior Bowl, myself and Steve, and like 285 or whatever. I'm just 5'11", so there's a picture of me, Gennaro, and Steve, and I look like a child in the middle. But there's not often you can find a guy that makes Steve look small, and he manages to do that. So a truly massive human being.
Yeah, he's absolutely huge. He's got 35.5-inch arms, so he's got the length. Once he understands how to strike and extend against edge rushers, it makes it really difficult. When you've got tackles that big, they don't have to be that fast. But then when you realize he played rugby, so he's someone that had a lot of movement skills in the first place to be playing rugby. At tackle, you can see what it looks like as a finished arc if we do it right in Jordan Mailata. So hopefully we see that. And hopefully soon with Travis Clayton as well. He's another rugby guy who converted as a tackle using his elite movement skills. So it's very interesting to see how that works out for him. Lucky Tassi, who is a Samoan Australian defensive tackle, nose tackle. He's 6'6", 350 pounds, 34-inch arms, and 10.5-inch hands. Extremely strong, this guy is. Like the biggest fires I've ever seen in my life. And he's just learning how to move his body. He was 500 pounds a year or so ago, so he's lost a lot of weight. So he's still getting used to it. But you see the elite movement skills in his footwork. while we won't test the best for the big guys in regards to certain drills because we're rugby players, we don't know how to kind of start from a standstill. We're used to running up and building momentum. But once these guys actually understand how to start moving in that way, understanding the nuances of football, how to put their hands on people, it's gonna be very fun to see because they've got the attributes that elite NFL players have. It's just translating it to the sport, learning the game, and falling in love with it really helps. Definitely really helps.
One thing,
No, go ahead.
sorry, one thing that's a little bit confusing to some people, I think, is how some of these guys are signing right now. Some of these guys are draft eligible. It basically, as I understand it, follows kind of the same rules as the NFL, right? It's the amount of time you're removed from high school, essentially. So it's effectively how old these guys are and how long they've been out of school, whether or not they're eligible to sign immediately, like Jordan Petaia, like a couple of these other guys, or whether they're draft eligible. And you were saying, I think you've got 8 guys this year that are still theoretically eligible, theoretically in this draft, effectively.
Yeah, and yes, that is the confusing part about it, guys. We've got teams calling in for normal visits, but like, no, he's draft eligible. It needs to be a 30 visit. So it is a bit confusing at times. So not just Jordan being signed, we've also got Lenny Craig, who signed for the Falcons as a kicker, and also TJ signed for Washington Commanders as well. So that is like just at the beginning for us, if I'm honest with you. There's a lot of talent within this class where teams are very attracted to. Again, as I said, the elite traits. Seeing TJ go to the Commanders, I think, is a great fit for him. He's 6'2", just under 250, running just low 4.6s, 34-inch vert, 10.5 ball jump, very, very explosive. Moves very fluidly from his rugby days. I'm very interested and looking forward to seeing how he develops as an edge rusher. Think Dante Fowler or more athletic Carl Wilson. Very fluid how he moves, very slick. Like it's going to be exciting to see, and especially being on one of Dan Quinn's teams. He knows how to get edge rushers moving, so that's going to be really interesting for us to see.
And what do you think the prospects are? Do you think any of these guys are going to get drafted this year? If so, how many? What do you think?
I'm going to say a minimum of 2 this year. I know that sounds crazy, but I say crazy things sometimes. Definitely.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
Just the opportunity for NFL clubs to develop a player with elite traits. You get into the later rounds and you're just looking at measurables per se. With us, we have great measurables, but then we've got these great measurables by just cramming that into 10 weeks. Imagine what you can do when you have these guys in your building for 18 months. What's going to happen when you have them in your building for 24 months, 36 months? They're going to grow. They're going to use these attributes. These are guys that are very passionate about being successful in the NFL. These 10 weeks, I saw a lot of hard work. I saw a lot of passion. I saw a lot of determination. And I saw some guys that are learning to love the game. And there's a few guys that have already been in the game long enough, like Leander, Maceo, Dante, Maz is very young in the game, but these are guys that the taste they've had of football, they love it. So with that, when you love something and you're willing to work, I believe that's where you're going to have success. There's a special group of guys. It's just going to be really interesting to see. Hopefully, we get draft picks. I'm pretty sure of it. But even after the fact, we can be signed as undrafted free agents, like Byron Matos was last year. So there's opportunities for these guys to get on teams and for teams to willing to develop them. And it's not just developing them for their team, but also developing the sport worldwide. We've got TJ now signed for the Commanders. I expect to see jersey sales in Zimbabwe and South Africa now. Commanders, next time I go there scouting wise, I definitely need to see them jerseys, or I'm going to have to buy one and wear one out there myself. Just so they could kind of know and understand what's kind of happening there, because this is a sport where multiple body types have a place. You can have a receiver that's 5'9", 160 pounds. And then like you can have someone like Gennaro that's 6'9", 350 pounds. Both ends of the scale. And that's sports. That's every single sport on this planet, that there is a way to kind of convert and be successful. And it brings a lot of excitement. I definitely think once people sink their teeth into the sport more, you yourself, we've grown up in Europe and we've found this game and fallen in love with it and we stuck with it. So definitely think that this is something that could definitely happen for more people as these guys embark on their journeys in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect kind of partnership with all of these games that are, now taking place around the globe. Like being able to see the game is one thing. That's a great way of being exposed to football and falling in love with it. But having a real connection of like this guy came from here and is now playing in the league is a totally different thing as well. So those two things working together in the next few years, I think will be amazing. Like I would imagine Jordan Mailata's impact has already been incredible, but if there's another couple of those guys that make rosters that stick around, that become starters, that become, high level NFL players, it's going to have such a huge impact wherever they're from.
Definitely. I would say Jordan Mailata has had such a big impact worldwide that now Australia have an NFL academy.
And games headed
Oh,
there. I mean,
yeah.
like a couple of games in 2026 was it they're going to get games. So yeah, it's almost all down to him.
Yeah. So you just thinking about obviously, and their time zone is completely different to the American one. So they sacrifice a lot to be NFL fans. And now to get
Right.
game,
Crazy
get
times the games are on.
yeah. I think it's Monday morning for them. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's a big change in life, but it's definitely a big help. When you've got, and he's a rock star of our offensive lineman. How many O linemen in history have really been mic'd up, and find that kind of entertainment? You can just tell Farrell
Right.
falling in love with having someone from a complete different walk of life. He's someone he hasn't gone the college route. He's come from amateurish rugby to being a superstar at NFL. So it's I know a lot of fans find it interesting. Obviously, he's got the accent as well. We get a lot of that when we start speaking. So yeah, the international thing is very interesting, and having the game on Netflix as well on Christmas Day, I think that's given another access for individuals around the world to watch the sport live. So it's definitely broadening the game. There's more questions. There's more athletes in other sports questioning whether or not holding it. I might have a chance to do that, and how do I go about it? And that's what the IPP is there for.
Yeah, it's a great program. I love some of the players that you guys have got this year. I think it's going to be really exciting.
We was just talking about Australia, so we've also got Latia and Nathaniel. Well, Nathaniel's from New Zealand, but he played basketball professionally in Australia. He's someone that's kind of like a Jimmy Graham clone, just under 6'6", 260 pounds, run a 4.71. Very vertically, you know what basketball converts usually do. Um,
Right.
so that's an easy conversion for a tight end. He's just turned 21. And then Latia as well, he's a former rugby player, just under 6'6" as well. He's got 35-inch long arms. So his catch radius is ridiculous. Hard worker. Um, Worked extremely hard throughout camp. So once he gets his opportunity with the team, I know he's going to do great. And the last person I'm going to mention, or two more guys I'm going to mention, is Pascal. He's a former rugby player from South Africa, Lesotho, and Nigeria. He's 6'4", 235 pounds. He's got 34-inch arms. So he's very similar to Will McDonald, the Jets defensive end.
Mhm.
They run around the same speed, very explosive. And he's just learning how to be a pass rusher. And then finally, we got Leander Wiegand. He's someone that had the most reps of anyone in this cycle with 38 on the bench. He's someone that went to USF originally straight out of Germany, but unfortunately, just due to some family reasons, had to return home. Last year, he played for the Munich Ravens underneath Joe Thomas. And so he's just someone that needs reps, extremely strong of interior offensive lineman. So that's just some of the attributes we have from this class. But once these guys get opportunities, get into camp, get drafted, get signed as undrafted free agents, I feel like this class is going to be really special.
Yeah, it's an awesome group of people. Just from the Irish perspective, how's Aaron Sexton been looking with his transition?
Oh, our section's been great. Obviously running the 4-4s. He's picked up the nuances of playing receiver very well, catches the ball well, gets in and out of his breaks well. He's just understand how to pace his routes and when to use his speed. So he's someone that, as I said previously, he will be a kick returner immediately, a punt returner immediately, just with his electric speed, being able to change direction and just take it to the house. I'm looking forward to seeing him get his opportunity on kickoff because that's so much like rugby sevens. Him and Joaquin both played rugby seven, so I feel like that's going to be something natural. And the kickoff rule hasn't really brought returners as yet, so I'm hoping yeah. This is what I'm hoping with these guys. They can bust this wide open in regards to kick return, and take one home, and then that could be the transition. They can learn how to be receivers. They can be gunners. They could play special teams and earn a spot on the team so they could be play on Sundays.
Perfect. Dom, thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much, Sam. Much appreciated, man.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.